What's going on, everybody? Jay Howe here, and in this Diablo 3 Barbarian build video, I'm going to show you one of the current top Season 3 builds that is near or at the top of the leaderboards. Still making use of the Wrath of the Waste set and Whirlwind, and I'm going to show you all the skills, gear, and a few tips that are also necessary for when properly gearing your character. Stay tuned for all that and some gameplay at the end with the extra tips coming ahead. So for the skills, I'll go over them very quickly, come back around and recap what you're going to be using, why you're going to be using it, and some alternative skills that you can use in place to better fit your playstyle. You're going to be using Rend with Mutilate, Whirlwind with Blood Funnel, Ignore Pain with Ignorance is Bliss, Warcry with Impunity, Battle Rage with Swords to Plowshares, Wrath of the Berserker with Insanity, and for your passives, Boon of Bolcathos, Nerves of Steel, Rampage, and Ruthless. So your main skill is going to be Whirlwind with Blood Funnel. This allows critical hits to restore 1% of your maximum life. At high greater rifts, this comes in very useful because you're going to be taking a lot of damage, high amounts of damage, and this allows you to passively heal as you whirlwind your way through seas of enemies. Now, Rend with Mutilate is one of the alternative skills that you can use. You utilize this because it says affected enemies are chilled and take 10% increased damage from all sources. You will not use this until you're on the Greater Rift boss. This allows you, especially at high Greater Rifts, to do an extra 10% damage over a very long period of time as you continue to refresh this. Having this can come in very handy during those long Greater Rift boss fights. Alternatively, you could go with something like Ground Stomp to be able to stun the Greater Rift boss for a few seconds and be able to keep this around in key crowd control moments. It also helps regenerate Fury. If you do prefer to go with some of the other alternatives, it can come in pretty nicely to be able to have that extra Fury when necessary. Next up, we have Ignore Pain with Ignorance is Bliss. Ignore Pain is great because this reduces all damage taken by 50% and you gain immunity to all crowd control impairing effects for 5 seconds. That's really good, and you're going to be utilizing this with Ignorance is Bliss, which says, while Ignore Pain is active, gain 5,364 life per second, which does add up and can heal you in key moments. Now, you're wondering why not go with Ironhide. Ironhide you might go with. However, if you do have the Pride of Cassius belt, this is going to be very good, especially depending on the role that you get. The secondary says increases the duration of Ignore Pain by anywhere between 4 to 6 seconds. Depending on your cooldown reduction and your role in the secondary here, you might have to elect to go with Ironhide. Having 100% uptime on your Ignore Pain is absolutely necessary for this build. Warcry with Impunity. Here's one to where you get some extra toughness out of this to increase your resistances to all elements by 20%, plus the base effect of Warcry, which is a very nice thing. Alternatively, if you're going for speed clears or casual gameplay and you're having trouble with Fury, you can go with something like Charge. Now, here is a rune that you're going to be using a little differently. Battle Rage with Swords to Plowshares. Critical hits have up to an 8% chance to cause enemies to drop additional health globes. Traditionally, we've gone with Into the Fray or Bloodshed, and rightfully so. However, since you're going to be using Blood Funnel, and since you need health, this actually goes twofold because it helps you manage your Fury very nicely. Having the extra health globes drop allows you to do two different things. You're going to be running a pair of Reaper's Wraps, which allow health globes to restore your primary resource. So that's a very nice thing to have. Plus, like I said, you're going to be getting the added benefit of the healing as well. Wrath of the Berserker with Insanity, because you're going to need to be doing lots of damage, and that's going to be helping you out quite a bit. Boon of Bolcathos. Now, this is going to be good because it's going to be based on a certain amount of cooldown reduction, and having this on here allows you to have 100% uptime on your Wrath of the Berserker without the need for something like a 4-piece Immortal King set. And I'll get into the important numbers there in just a second. Nerves of Steel. This allows you to have a second life. Now, if you do want to throw caution to the wind, you can go without Nerves of Steel. I don't recommend it for everybody. However, if you are looking to push as high as possible and live a little dangerously, running with something like Berserker Rage or Brawler, depending on the circumstance, might be a better option for more damage. Rampage is nice here. Increase strength by 1% for 8 seconds after killing or assisting in an enemy kill. Now, this effect stacks up to 25 times, which means you'll have an extra 25% strength. Berserker Rage is nice, however, it is sometimes difficult to maintain max fury, and having a 100% uptime on Rampage is likely until you get to the Rift boss, so this can help during fast clears. Now, if you are on high Greater Rifts, the Greater Rift boss has a lot of health. Ruthless comes in very handy. You deal 40% additional damage to enemies below 30% health, which is extremely important on those high Greater Rifts where the Rift bosses have a lot of health. Now let's look at the gear. The gear is based around the Wrath of the Waste set. Now that's going to be based on all 6 pieces with the boots, pants, gloves, shoulders, helm, and chest piece. If you don't have the Pride of Cassius belt, you could easily elect to run with something like a Vigilante belt for the cooldown reduction, or any other belt that helps here. A Witching Hour can work, and you can alternatively run with something like a Leoric's Crown to be able to get the extra cooldown reduction by putting a diamond in there. So keep that in mind, but if you did do that, you are going to have to run a Ring of Royal Grandeur. Now, the reason this is a Season 3 only build is the Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. This is a Season 3 only ring where the secondary says, reduce the remaining cooldown of one of your skills by 1 second when you hit with a resource spending attack. This is very important, and I'm going to go over this in a minute so you know and understand how this works, because this is going to be very important when you're using your cooldowns in battle. Now, the other ring that you're going to be running is a Convention of Elements. Now, this has been tested to do quite a bit of damage because you get the extra damage whenever it comes to that element. Now, if you have a Stone of Jordan, you can run with that, or if you're running with a Leoric's Crown for extra cooldown reduction, this would be your Ring of Royal Grandeur slot. So keep that in mind. Now, this also utilizes the Bolcathos weapons. You're going to be using both one-handers. Now, it's very important to keep in mind that it is going to be highly beneficial to roll cooldown reduction here. Now, I didn't use a gift here because I'm utilizing these until I get Ancient Ones, so if you have Ancient Ones, use those accordingly. The reason you're going to roll cooldown reduction on your weapons is because you have the potential to roll up to 10% where you don't have that ability on any other gear. So having that 10% rolled or close to it on both weapons is a really good start to get to a cooldown reduction plateau that you want to hit. Having cooldown reduction also rolled on your shoulders and rings can help you achieve maximum cooldown reduction, or at least enough of it to where you can have 100% uptime on your Ignore Pain and your Wrath of the Berserker. And we already went over the Reaper's Wraps, which allows you to have your health globes restore your primary resource while utilizing your Swords rune on Battle Rage. Now, your amulet can be any type of amulet that mitigates damage, or it can be a Hellfire, or any number of amulets here. I just happen to be running this because it is very well rolled. Now, for the legendary gems, the Taeguk is going to be your #1 absolutely must-have. This allows you to do a lot of damage, especially once you get it at a high level, and then it also is giving you armor once you get it over level 25, so this is just one that is impossible to pass up. The Gogok of Swiftness allows, once you get it to level 25, to gain 1% cooldown reduction per stack of Swiftness, which can go up to 15 times. This is really important when you're trying to hit that cooldown reduction so that you have 100% uptime. So keep that in mind. The Gogok is important for most cases. Now, you can run with something else here if you have high enough cooldown reduction, but test it for yourself so you can see, once you get one-on-one, how much cooldown reduction you actually need. Now, the other one is the Bane of the Trap, because this is going to slow enemies around you, and it's going to allow you to do increased damage to enemies that are under the effects of control impairing effects. So that's the gear, that's the skills. For the Paragon points, you want to max your movement speed and then the rest into strength. Having cooldown reduction first and then crit hit damage is important. However, if you do have low crit chance, say below 45 or 40%, you might opt to put points into crit hit chance first, because you're going to be benefiting from Whirlwind, being able to crit and restore life, as well as your critical hits on Battle Rage to be able to drop additional health globes. So keep that in mind. You might opt to go crit chance before you go crit damage. For defense, you'll have your resist all, armor, life, and then life regen. Utility, you'll go with area damage and then life on hit. I do not have any points in resource cost reduction, and I probably won't going forward. Having extra health from Ignore Pain, because this is based on life per fury spent, the more fury you spend, the more life you're going to get back. So keep that in mind when you are allocating utility points here. So that's the skills, that's the gear. I'm going to go over a couple of key points in the gameplay section so that you can understand how you want to utilize your cooldowns and why you want to do that. If you're cutting off here and you like the build and you like the video, feel free to hit that like button below because that's always appreciated. If you're sticking around, let's get into the gameplay section so you can see what I'm talking about when we go over the cooldown reduction. Now, a couple things to note before we get into that section is that your skills like Battle Rage and Warcry, you do not want to utilize as soon as they come off cooldown. Warcry you can if you're having trouble with Fury to be able to get that Fury back. The skills that you want to be able to have on cooldown only is the Wrath of the Berserker and the Ignore Pain. Now, the reason for that, again, goes back to the Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. Reduce the remaining cooldown of one of your skills by 1 second when you hit with a resource spending attack. If you have 3 skills on cooldown, it's going to reduce 1 second off one of the skills at a time, not all at once. Utilizing Warcry every time it's available, if you don't need the Fury, can mean that it might be taking away a couple seconds on the cooldown from Ignore Pain or Wrath of the Berserker, which can lead to fatal circumstances. Not having that 100% uptime on the 50% damage reduction, as well as the Wrath of the Berserker benefits, can really hinder you when you're moving through. So keep that in mind that you only want to pop these in the right circumstance, as well as in the right moment. If you're in between groups, definitely go ahead and refresh them because it only benefits when you're hitting mobs. If you're not hitting mobs, then it's okay to go ahead and utilize these because the cooldown reduction is not going to be there. Once you get back in action, you can pop the necessary skills and be able to get your cooldown reductions back. Now, for the cooldown reduction, anywhere between 40 and 45% is a comfortable level, especially with the Gogok. I found that at 48% where I'm at now, I can comfortably fight the Rift Guardian one-on-one to be able to get the right amount of cooldown reduction to have 100% uptime on Ignore Pain and Wrath of the Berserker. Depending on the Rift Guardian, if you have to move too far away from them and then come back, you might find yourself unable to pop this in time and take some unnecessary damage. So keep that in mind when you are utilizing cooldown reduction and how you're stacking it. You could alternatively go with something to where if you have high enough, you can get rid of Gogok, or you can roll, say, on this convention, roll cooldown reduction over to crit damage, and effectively get more damage out of it while still maintaining 100% uptime on the necessary skills. Okay, so one of the things that you're going to see is that I currently have my Wrath of the Berserker and my Ignore Pain now procced. Now, you're going to see that on the cooldown there, the Obsidian Ring is coming into play. Right as the Ignore Pain starts to run out, my Ignore Pain skill comes back off of cooldown and I'm able to refresh that. Now unfortunately there's way too many buffs there, so you actually lost track of Wrath of the Berserker. Now I have my Warcry and my Battle Rage already up, so all I have to focus on is refreshing my Ignore Pain and Wrath of the Berserker. Hitting enough enemies, especially traveling through enough enemies as a Whirlwind Barbarian, means that you hit more enemies, which is what procs the cooldown off of the Obsidian Ring. So you can go through, make sure and utilize Ignore Pain, have 100% uptime on it, while also having 100% uptime on Wrath of the Berserker. It can help you kind of take care of higher greater rifts and take a lot of damage while also simultaneously dishing out a lot of damage. And you can see that Battle Rage is just about to come off cooldown, the same as Warcry. So essentially you do have to refresh those at key points, and having enough cooldown reduction can let you refresh all of those skills at the right time. So keep that in mind when you are utilizing this at really high greater rifts and going through this. And as you can see here, I'm using it on trials. It gave me a good barometer as far as where I can take this just in trials, and it allowed me to showcase with enough density here how the cooldown reduction works with the Obsidian Ring, which is the main thing. And again, the reminder to keep only Wrath of the Berserker and Ignore Pain on cooldown unless you absolutely need Fury with Wrath of the Berserker. And fittingly, Anonymous signed on as I was recording this. Special shout out to Anonymous for helping me put this together and kind of flagging this for me. Also, special shout out to Morpheum, who gave me the Pride of Cassius and allowed me to actually make this after several hours of farming. So that's it, everybody. That's the build. That's the video. Like I said, if you did like the video or the build or both, feel free to hit that like button below because that is always appreciated. There are some alternatives to this build, so let me know your thoughts below, what you're running, and possibly some of the other skills that you prefer. As always, I appreciate you guys watching. Till next time, happy hunting. See you again.